5, 4. Hello fellow StarCraft 2 players, and welcome to another Gosubuilds guide. This time we're going to be looking at a TVP build that's not a 1-Rax FE. This is going to be the 2-Rax build where you end up pushing Protoss very early with a bunch of Marines, 1 or 2 Marauders, and concussive shells, followed up with stim or combat shields as soon as possible. And this build's designed around disrupting early game Protoss, not letting them get into their comfort zone, trading units back and forth, and so for that reason we don't actually have, there is no straight up build past a certain point. It depends on what you do, it depends how you're playing it out, it depends what you're trading with. But we'll see the opener definitely, and then we'll talk about how to continue with it. Just like almost all builds, you want to be getting a 10 depot. And I choose to build this depot at the wall. There's a lot of players, I know MKP, for instance, Marine King Prime definitely does not wall off at all with this, but I feel more comfortable doing it, so that's a personal preference. But the important thing is that the barracks that you end up building at 12 supply, which we'll see go down in a second, right here, is not at the wall. And there's multiple reasons for that, and we'll talk about them in a second, but this barracks should not be at the wall, whereas this depot is just personal preference. And so for this build, like we said, it's not a 1-Rax FE. This build pushes early with Marauders and Marauder slow, so at 13 supply, right around here, we actually do get the Gas Geyser. And if your opponent ends up scouting this Gas Geyser, there's a lot of things going through their mind, and one of which is 2-Rax, but one of which is also 1-1-1, or some sort of Banshee, or some sort of early medevac, or Hellions. There's a lot of different things Terrans can do and be tricky with. This is definitely one of the more stable things you can do, but there's a lot of options Terran has, so not seeing the add-on in this barracks is very important, and that's the reason why this barracks is not at the wall. As soon as you get your Marine done, you want to start your Orbital Command, and then instantly start 2 barracks, rather your second barracks, and then finally you can scout. Now the reason for this late scout is you just don't have the means to do all this stuff, and regardless of what your opponent's doing, you're still going to be doing this build to a point. So right here, with your first Marine done, you want to start a reactor over here, and then finally you can start your depot. It's a little bit close, you'll see I might get supply blocked for a second, but if you don't wall off with that depot, you'll have time to fit it in, and have zero problems with getting supply blocked. So constant SCVs throughout this whole thing, but reactor goes down on this first barracks, immediately followed by a depot, and then you get a tech lab on the second one. The reason for this is that your concussive shells is your timing attack. However, if you push with just 1 Marauder, then you have nothing to actually micro with. By getting the reactor this early, you end up getting a bunch more Marines. I was probably too busy microing the scout. Good. You get a bunch more Marines to actually microwave and trade effectively. And so that's why you get the reactor first. So as soon as the reactor finishes, double Marine production. As soon as the tech lab finishes, single Marauder production, and start concussive shells. Again, concussive shells is your timing attack. That's when you want to move out. And depending on what you scout, you can move out just before it finishes, but definitely by the time you get to your opponent's base, you'll have concussive shells. And you see over here, I've now actually finished a wall off. This kind of helps versus DTs, or if your opponent's actually doing an all-in, but usually it's not what you want to do, just to avoid taking damage to these depots in case your opponent does something wonky. So right over here, constant Marines still producing 2 at a time, constant Marauder still producing 2 at a time, concussive shells finishes, right around the time the second Marauder comes, and then you see this is when you grab everything, you get it together, and you just move out. Sometimes you can pull 1 SCV, but you see in this game, I actually have an SCV at the Watchtower still, so I'm just going to pull that one. This is, the SCV gives you the opportunity to bunker rush, but in general, you just won't have the money to actually make that effective. So really, you don't want to commit to doing it unless you're going to pull like all of your SCVs and do some sort of an all-in if you know your opponent is doing some certain build. It can be kind of like a mind game thing. I know Flash did that versus Naniwa recently, but certain things like that are very non-standard, and I would suggest not doing it. So you push out with concussive shells. I always get those two confused. Concussive shells. 1 or 2 Marauders, depending on whether your opponent has their base down really early, like a Nexus first, or if they're going for a 1-gate FE, which is kind of what I pretended he was doing, even though this very easy AI does very incredibly dull things. And the follow-up to this build. There's a lot of different things you can do. Some people cut production, stop making Marauders after number 3, kind of cut Marines a little bit, aren't too good on the reinforcing aspect, and they just immediately get an Expo down here, and this allows you to get towards the mid-game actually effectively. It ends up being around 630 that you can afford this. Other people, MKP I know likes to do this, and Illusion likes to do this too. Constant Marauders, constant Marines, cut 0 production, get a factory on 1 base. Maybe if you can't afford an Expo, get an Expo, but try to do bunker stuff, try to get your second gas, try to get stim, try to get combat shields as soon as possible, get medevacs as soon as possible, and just keep hammering the front, keep hammering the front, keep hammering the front. I would only suggest doing that if you're good with micro. I know Illusion and MKP are good with micro, so clearly they like to do that. It's a personal preference. And it's up to you which way you want to. Go experiment, see which one you like, see if you enjoy doing this sort of micro, doing concussive shells versus early game Protoss with this sort of an army, or whether you're more about the macro and you just kind of do this to poke out, maybe kill a unit or 2, and not actually do much damage. Once you get to your base, to your opponent's base that is, be sure not to commit up this ramp. I know sometimes it feels like, oh, if I could just get up the ramp, I could get into his production and kill him, but you will most likely face 1 force field, and that 1 force field will trap half of your units, and just you'll lose half your army for no reason. So try your best not to commit up a ramp unless you know that it's safe, and be happier more to take out a natural or to take out units that are over here, or take out workers that are over here, and do more damage on the low ground. Remember, if your opponent doesn't have this low ground, just pull back. Just cut all production, get yours faster. Don't feel like you have to commit to any sort of damage or anything versus a one-basing player, because you're one-basing, so you're about even. But the faster your base goes down and the faster you don't lose your units, the better off you are. So just don't commit up the ramp and lose all your units for no reason is what I'm trying to say. And that's MKP's 2 racks right there. Thank you for watching.